As I record this, it's February 2021. We're nearly 2 months into Britain's third lockdown right now, and I've got a problem. I'm out of ideas. I've now recorded all the computer science and language ideas I've got, at least all the good ones, and to be honest, I'm kind of burned out on those anyway. I can travel to film stuff, but it has to be outdoors and within England. Apparently I filmed most of those stories years ago when I was starting out. I tried hiring a couple of freelance researchers. They were wonderful, they did their best, they found some stories that would be great for other people or for BBC documentaries, but there seems to be some aspect to a video that's right for this channel that I can't put into words. And if I can't do that, I can't expect anyone else to. But I just got access to GPT-3, the state-of-the-art artificial intelligence text generator made by OpenAI. I'm not going to go into the details of how it works here, other people have done that far better than I can, but in short, it has read and stored a huge amount of the web, and if you give it some text, it will try to continue that text in the same style. But it's not just repeating what it's already seen, it's coming up with brand new, never-before-written sentences. It is incredibly clever in specific, but very limited ways, and the challenge of come up with new video ideas in this style is exactly what it's meant to be good at. So I gave it a list of some of my previous videos, ones that I'd filmed solo in England, and I asked it, come up with more. Maybe it could find the connection that I can't describe, pull from all the billions of things in its memory, and find the stories that I've missed. It took a little bit of tweaking to get the prompt and the parameters right. At one point it generated part of a fake interview with me, which was weird, but pretty quickly it was churning out plausible sounding video titles. In the end I generated more than 1,000 of them. I knew most of them wouldn't be any good, but I thought maybe it can manage at least 1 in 1,000. And it sort of did. Now, OpenAI's terms of service don't let me give you the full list. I have to curate them and show you a sample. Those are the terms and conditions I agreed to, but that's not actually much of a problem because most of the titles were just dull, which is fair enough. Most of the video ideas I come up with also get discarded almost immediately because they're just not good enough. The AI suggested titles like The World's First Bridge Over a Motorway, An Industrial Warehouse in the Middle of Nowhere, and The Beach Where You Can Hear the Sea. I can hear the sea. Most of the ideas were plausible, they were valid sentences, they just weren't interesting. There were a few suggestions that were just nonsense. The British road that is also a boat, the cliff that refuses to be a cliff, the Green Death and the Industrial Revolution. I'm actually fairly sure that last one's a Doctor Who episode. GPT-3 has a setting called temperature, which is basically how predictable it should be. If I turned the temperature down too low, it just repeated existing video titles over and over back to me. Too high, and I got ideas like Jeremy Clarkson's Lottery of Death, which I swear was a genuine suggestion it gave me, and which I assume will be coming to Amazon Prime next year. But when I got the temperature right, it did actually suggest some real places. The abandoned homes of Wigan Pier. Well, Wigan Pier is a derelict industrial site in the West Midlands that's being redeveloped. It's not a story I could tell, and it's not one I knew about before now, but someone else could do that. The supersized megalithic stones of Avebury. I made a video about Avebury years ago when I was just starting out, filming on my phone. Avebury is like Stonehenge, but better. A+ suggestion, if I hadn't already done it. It also suggested stories about the RRS Discovery, an early 20th century steamship that explored the Antarctic, about the Aberfan disaster, where more than 100 people died in a mining landslip, about the New River, an aqueduct that runs through London, and about the Post Office Railway, where I've actually visited before, just not to film. None of those were quite right to make a video about. Sadly, I couldn't find the narrative hook that means they work for this channel, but they're close. It also suggested the failed bomb plot Pigeon. That was an article that was used on Citation Needed a few years ago. It even suggested a video idea that I've already filmed, but that I haven't released yet. I'll keep that title secret for now, but yeah, it worked. I wasn't expecting that. Videos talking about testing AI are usually comedy about how bad the results are. They're not supposed to work. There were some suggestions outside the UK too. The airport which lands planes on water. I googled it, and that would be Vancouver Harbour's seaplane terminal. I've been there. I've seen it before. I just never thought to film it. Also, there's how the CIA plotted to kill Castro with explosive seashells, which actually happened. That's a real thing. But I googled those words, and they've never been put in that exact order anywhere online. It's not a video I can film, but it's a good idea for someone. But the most interesting category of suggestion was the one where the AI came up with videos that I would love to make, but which are completely fictional. Because of course it would. It doesn't understand any of the words. It's not checking to see if they're true. It's just looking for patterns. So with the help of an animator, here are some videos that I can't make because they're not real. The village that was saved by synchronised traffic lights, the white cube at the end of the world, the sanity-defying crossroads on the Isle of Skye, how a secret gadget in the beam of the Olympic Stadium helped deliver Britain's medals, the long-forgotten history of the British moon landings, the island with a gravity-defying vertical mountain, the strange light that floats over Oxfordshire, the lost village of Lofthouse that's now invisible, the dream of a Russian utopia in East Yorkshire. I want to film all of those. There were hundreds of perfect video ideas for my channel, but they're not real. They're all in some weird parallel universe, and I don't have a word. I don't think there's a word in the English language for nostalgia for a thing that never existed, that never could have existed. But what if those were videos? What if I could click on any of those topics and get a video about it? So, as an experiment, I took one of those subjects, the one about the Russian utopia in East Yorkshire, and I told the AI to write the script. I just gave it one instruction, and it did it really well. So I filmed it, or at least the start of it, which is why I'm standing here in another lockdown, windswept bit of England, because the AI gave me exactly what I asked for, even though it wasn't true. In the late 1800s, a wealthy Russian noblewoman by the name Baroness Helena von Hahn had a dream of a perfect world in which the relentless march of capitalism would be slowed enough to allow people to enjoy their lives and not be forced to work constantly. She found her chance when she learned that Thomas Kirby, an English businessman and entrepreneur, had just bought up large tracts of land in an area called Holderness in West Yorkshire. Through her friendship with his sister, she convinced him to sell it to her. The site was dubbed Kirby's Dream. The Baroness then set about building schools, hospitals and parks on the site, as well as planting thousands of trees. Unfortunately, it was too good to last. I didn't run that 100 times and pick the best script. That was the first draft it gave me. None of that's real. There was a Russian noblewoman with that name, but she wasn't a baroness. There are no records of an entrepreneur called Thomas Kirby. The land purchase never happened. This is Holderness, and it's just farmland. There never was any Russian utopia. I could have asked for a script for any of the 1,000 video titles, or 1,000 different scripts for any of them, 1,000 different failed Russian utopias in Yorkshire. There's a reason that the company, OpenAI, is putting limits and ethical guidelines on its text generator, because they're the only thing stopping people from asking for human-sounding political arguments, or fake angry customer reviews, or, well, anything. 3 years ago, text generation like that was impossible. New technologies do tend to follow a sigmoid curve. Nothing happens for ages, and there's a massive revolution, and it feels like the world's changing. Then it reaches a new, fairly steady state. That happened with the web, with smartphones, and I suspect it's happening with AI. The catch is, we don't know where we are on that curve yet. You never do until it flattens out. It's possible that this is as far as we go, that the best we'll get is that an AI can generate a fake script and it's a novelty. But if someone can take that and add the requirement that what it writes has to be true, that it has to cross-reference with history books and encyclopedias like IBM's Watson did to win Jeopardy 10 years ago, well, if that happens, my job will get a lot easier. Until then, I'm going to ask it for another 1,000 ideas and see what it comes up with. I thought I should check, and yeah, it's fine. It's still there.